Good morning, or afternoonish by this point. I felt compelled to do a reading for someone who is, I guess the energy would be struggling with self-worth, or, like when someone is doing something or giving something, like wondering if it's enough or something along those lines. And so I got the card Magnum Opus. So a lot of times this has a lot to do with the creative pursuits that we give to the world. It can be like our legacy in some kind of way. And sometimes when there's self-worth, it's something that we kind of fail to see what our legacy is or what our legacy will do. It's kind of like akin to the Philosopher's Stone, and how, they try to turn all metals into gold. And so it's kind of like when you try to through a series of hard events, sometimes Saturn returns, where we go through savage awakenings and we change into the person that we're supposed to be. But to the person who's wondering if what they're doing even matters, the answer is yes. And I'm not just saying that, because everybody's doing something that matters, but in this reading, there's a lot to do with creative pursuits. And, sometimes Neptune is known as the illusions, and sometimes a deceptive type of energy, and the moon, perception. So sometimes we get into a space where we cannot see our own greatness. And then, because Neptune, imagine like when you're driving like really early in the morning, or sometimes late at night, or during a storm, like even a winter storm, where the path is obscured from you and you can't see where you're going. And that invokes a spirit of fear sometimes. And then, the perception is, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know all these different things. And, emotions are like the tide. They come in and they come out. And so if there's something like, for example, you need to make a decision on, don't do it when it's during high tide, when there's an emotional upheaval and different things like that. That's a time when, you want, like the word says, cultivate, which means that sometimes, like, for example, when flowers are growing, sometimes there's, parts of the plant that needs to be pruned. But you just don't go and cut off everything because we're having, because there's one spot in the plant or there's one wilted piece and different things like that. It's knowing what pieces, what thoughts, what people, what actions, what, all these different things that don't serve you. So there's a little bit of, also, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So a lot of times, sometimes you need some TLC. Sometimes the answer isn't to do more, it's actually to rest. And especially when you get Neptune here, this is a very highly creative energy. So that has a lot to do with, and it doesn't matter if you do music, art, anything like that. It's anything that you create, your creation. And creation can be anything, but it has a lot to do with, the word on here is vision, right? So the energy of Neptune is to obscure things, to make it blurry and hard to understand. But if you have a vision and you know where you want to go, it's almost like you have to use it. If you look at it, also it looks like a compass, right? So you almost have to use your internal compass to get through the fog. So it could be your emotional fog, it can be something that's happening at work, it could be anything like that. It could be just you having a hard mental day on yourself. So there's a lot to do with messages and communication, all words. So let's think first inward, because we're doing introspection. What are the messages and the things, the thoughts, different things that we're saying to ourselves? Now, do those align with your vision? Do we have an inner critic, an inner bully? Do we have a cheerleader? Do we have a hype man? Do we have silence going on? We got nothing. right? Sometimes nothing is a good thing, and sometimes nothing means you're not inspiring yourself enough, which can also be part of the Neptune energy. You need inspiration. You need something to create. And sometimes if you don't know what your talent is, everybody's got a talent. It's different for everybody. And we have multiple talents. You have a toolkit that you came into this life with, and sometimes you're just not playing with your tools. You're not trying different things. You're not, exercising those muscles enough. And also, outwardly, what are the messages that we're receiving? Are we experimenting with how we use our words, or are we saying too much? Are we saying not enough? And also, is it coming back? Are we having positive conversations with people, back and forth? Or is it one-sided, so you have to ask yourself the energy that's coming in, and why you may be having some sort of self-esteem something. And then communication. And, the third house in astrology has a lot to do with the local environments that we put ourselves in, where we go like on a regular basis. Imagine like when you get in your car and you drive and you have a pattern of what you go to, like that local community era. Like, what does your community look like? Sometimes it can be siblings, it can be cousins, aunts, uncles, it can be family units. Sometimes the local community that you put yourself in, do you feel like you fit? That would be something you'd have to ask yourself. Do you feel like you're just existing sometimes? So there's sometimes a little bit of checking the language that's happening, and I don't know if that's the language that's happening within or from around you. Do you have a support system? Do you have a lack of a support system? Okay, so these two fell on the moon. One showed itself and one didn't. So mice. So I'm inclined to think that, there you go, you see Mars there? Mars can be a hard energy. Yep. So sometimes, again, it has the moon on here, right? So there we go. So we got a double moon going on. So sometimes, and that's a mirror on that card. So sometimes we have what's called mirror dysmorphia, where we do not see or understand ourselves clearly. Therefore, communication and messages, and maybe somebody else may not be able to. So if we can work on that, we can harness a more positive inner realm. We can make it more positive externally. I'm gonna do one more. There we go. Yeah, you got a lot of moons coming out. I don't know who this is for. So I would like to say that whoever's like being excessively hard on themselves, I feel like you just need a treat yourself kind of moment, because you even got the snake card, right? So, and that's also the moon right there. You see the moon. So this could kind of be akin to, like when you see this cultivate, when you're growing something, sometimes weeds grow. And if you're too quick to start pulling the weeds, you might actually rut up the actual plant that you're trying to grow. So you got to be kind of careful. But sometimes, the way that we think and the way that we approach ourselves and the way we talk to ourselves can be like snakes, right? We can be our own snake, we don't need anybody else. We can do it to ourselves. And then if you think about, this is Queen of Wands. Now, because this energy kind of feels like you're being too hard on yourself, the negative side of Queen of Wands is that she can be angry. She can be irritable. She can be fast and snippy and, sometimes just, feeling aggravated and or experiencing that. So you want to monitor your emotions and make sure that your emotions aren't warping your actual situation, because sometimes we can be super hard on ourselves. We can believe that something that we're doing doesn't matter and people don't appreciate it. But sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's you. You're not appreciating you enough. And then also, sometimes it's your environment. It's the people that you're submerging yourself into. We have sometimes this excessive want to be accepted. And sometimes the area that we want acceptance from, you can't thrive in it. Because when it's natural, you don't even have that feeling of wanting to fit in or wanting to be a certain way. So to the person who this resonates with, I do think that you need a break from whatever it is you're doing. You may be being too hard on yourself, maybe working too hard. You may need to change a little bit of your environment that you're dealing with, and you need to have creative dates with yourself and just kind of allow yourself to experiment with that. And you know, this isn't a bad reading. It just means that sometimes, you know, like, because you're actually doing a really good job and you're learning a lot of different lessons within yourself. But though the biggest lesson is we can be our own detriment. So be nicer to yourself so you can accomplish more, and don't make big decisions when we feel emotionally erratic. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. 12/12.